Before I tell you what happened, or rather, what's happening, I need to give you some background information about me and my family. Schizophrenia runs in the family on my mother's side, both of her parents. Suicide, although not an inheritable condition, is also surprisingly high in the Nicol-Jones family. My mother always warned me against drugs because she said it could kickstart mental problems that could not be undone. So I was a teetotaler all of my life. Even before I knew my family's history, I always felt unsafe when alone. When I was just a child, I always had the feeling that there was something standing right behind me. The skin on my back would vibrate, and I would become aware of every sound around me. This feeling carried over from Duplo, then Lego, then video games, and finally it dissolved away somewhere around the age of 14. I had matured out of it, I thought. Despite the overwhelming feeling of eyes on me, I always attributed my discomfort to an overactive imagination. My puberty was thereafter free from the paranormal paranoia that plagued my youth, and I could focus on my other woes, such as my undiagnosed dweeb syndrome, as a fellow student once pointed out. Joke's on him. I make more money in a month than he does in a year now, not to brag. I spent a lot of time working on myself. While my roommates partied and smoked weed, I spent my time either in the gym or behind the computer. All those parties I skipped paid off because I could afford to buy my home outright at the age of 25, much to the surprise of my ex-roommates. I did that a week ago. It's not a big place, nor is it modern, but it's in nature, and I prefer that to downtown. It's an old white 2-story house in the outskirts of Phoenix without another building in sight, just rolling hills of low cacti and succulents, all under the dry desert heat and pink sunset skies. The house is unremarkable, other than the fact it's lonesome despite looking copy-paste suburban home. It even has a perfectly trimmed emerald green lawn that holds at a knee-high white fence on the edge of the property. The water bill was going to be high to keep all that grass healthy, but money isn't an issue. So anyway, the first thing I did when arriving was installing the internet antenna on the roof, which took all but an hour or so. Then I set up a home office in what appeared to be a kid's bedroom. The room was boring, like all others, but this one had some of those glow-in-the-dark stars adhesive stickers on the ceiling. Those could be scrapped off later. Setting up my workstation was the most immediate task at hand. It never rained in Phoenix, so I just flung some cut 8 cables from the antenna over the outside wall and in through the window of the kid's bedroom. There were 2 more bedrooms, one of which I would turn into my home gym. The other would be my master bedroom. The gym equipment was scheduled to arrive in a week, and until then, I would happily go jogging. So after booting up my PC, I laced up my shoelaces and began my jog over the asphalt road that connected my beautiful home to the rest of the world. By now, the sun hung low in the sky, and I ran towards the beautiful pink heavens while jamming to some tunes and singing the lyrics as loud as I wanted. At that moment, without another soul in sight, I felt truly free. It was dusk by the time I returned. The lights in my house were off, other than the alternating colourful glow of my computer rig in the upper left window. After a quick shower, I wrapped a towel around my waist and jumped behind my PC. With the lights off, headphones on, and screens bright, I melted into work mode. I'm not going to tell you what I do exactly. All I can really tell you is that I'm a contractor who signed an NDA. It's a good gig if you can handle it. It does require expertise and the ability for deep concentration, but these are both things I had cultivated. I could probably write a thesis in the middle of a water balloon fight. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that you couldn't distract me if you tried. However, as I was working, I gradually became aware of an old feeling, one that I couldn't place at first. It felt as though, while I was working, a strange and ancient anxiety crept up from the floor, slowly from my legs to my neck, a vibration that hummed the entire part of the back of my body, until I had to finally give it my attention. Shivering, I cast my eyes back into my barren room, seeing only those glowing stars on the ceiling. I assumed, since the window was open and the desert heat had turned, that I was simply cold. I decided to go downstairs and unpack a fresh set of clothes from one of the boxes, but as I turned away from my screens, I felt that old feeling grow. Usually, looking back over my shoulder gave me a momentary relief. A relief that lasted little more than a few seconds, but something that at least told my logical mind that there was nothing to worry about. This time, however, the feeling grew with each step towards the door. I was on noodle legs by the time the lights turned on. I thought I had gone hypothermic or something, but no. That's impossible because I was sweating like a madman. Then I thought I might have rubbed against some kind of toxic plant while jogging, but I'm an avid hiker, and I had never heard of anything that could cause this kind of reaction. There was no escaping my reality. There was no running from myself. I was afraid. Not just afraid. I was absolutely terror-stricken. That old feeling I had forgotten, suddenly, like a raging current, came back into my world. I was unprepared, telling myself that there was no such thing as ghosts, did very little. I knew that my fear was irrational, yet that knowledge did little to alleviate this feeling. When I was a kid, I had protocols of myself to manage this, protocols my parents helped me develop. What did I do? I forced myself to think of the worst possible monsters I could to override the fear of the unknown. I imagined myself as a confident, fierce, and unwavering warrior. You know, the kind of warrior who doesn't have to run up the stairs after turning the basement light off. So, I did what I did as an 8-year-old. Except now, I wasn't a nose-picking, helpless little brat. Now, I was a handsome 200-pound lean sex machine. I was also wearing nothing but a towel and indoor slippers. But that wasn't going to stop me from sauntering through this house. My house. No matter what I felt. If my lizard brain wanted to feed my body adrenaline and activate its fight or flight response, then it was first going to have to deal with my monkey brain, which was arguably in charge, more or less. I grabbed the handle with shaking intensity and flung the door wide open, exposing my bare chest and hard nipples to the oppressive sheet of darkness that was an unlit, unfamiliar home. To my left, there were the other upstairs rooms. The railing to my right overlooked the bottom floor, my front door. On the far end of the hallway were the stairs, which was also where the light switch was located. Try as I might, I simply couldn't force myself to do a casual strut. Instead, I did a nervous, robotic march. Like a plastic soldier, I made my way for the light switch. With an exultant snap, the light sprang on, and a long-held breath escaped my chest. However, something strange happened. It all happened in a fraction of a second. The only way I can explain it was that the light replaced the darkness as though it were a liquid. As though the light pushed the darkness into the corners where it drained into the plaster. And in that fraction of a second, I heard a stifled breath. I stood there, frozen, other than the sweep of my eyes. That old feeling left, and instead I stood like a shaking shell of a man. It took me 20 minutes to finally move. The only motivation was running down to the fridge, which had nothing but a cold six-pack. Along the way, I turned on every light in the house. I then climbed to the roof with my bruise and sat there in contemplation. Only when twilight broke did I retreat to my bed, with the lights on.